Hello and welcome to That's Not Spit, It's Condensation. I'm Ryan Beach, and today I'm really excited to have my good friend Victor Djonorh on the podcast. Victor is the director of bands at Summit Middle School and assistant band director at Edmond Santa Fe. We've been friends for a long time, since my undergrad days, or slightly after my undergrad days when I would go back and visit. I was just recently in Oklahoma City for my undergrad teacher, Michael Anderson's retirement. He was on the podcast recently. Victor and I got to reconnect, and we just got to talking about the podcast and how we had planned to do this for a long time, and it didn't happen. And now we're doing it. And all of our conversations about things, we've had some really, really great conversations about just education. And this is like, middle and high school education, and just being a band director is so far from my world of expertise that I would be, foolish to try to imagine that I could possibly provide value. So what my hope is that Victor can I can learn from Victor, and any aspiring music educators out there can get some really good, just like practical real world advice for walking into things. Victor's been doing this for a long time now. And so I know that there's going to be a lot of good stuff that, at least one thing for everybody to take away, that kind of thing. So with that as a backdrop, Victor, I really appreciate you giving me your time, and let's hope that this podcast doesn't crash.
Hey, thanks for having me, dude. It's been a long time coming. It's good to just have a good conversation with a friend.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've got a long list of questions here. A lot of times I do like a sort of stream of consciousness. I'm also, for those of you watching the video, I'm like holding my microphone because a couple of days my boom arm just snapped and broke. So that's what's up with that. Yeah, I've got a list of questions here. A lot of times it's stream of consciousness, but I like these questions. So it may be a little less stream of consciousness, a little bit more kind of formal. I've just got these questions and I want to ask you them. But of course, we will, park on any topics that seem like they deserve to be dug into. We'll just park there and talk about it and go from there. So to get started, I would just love for you to take us back to your education. You can go as far back as you want. That will help us understand you, where you've been, and some of the experiences that you've had that have shaped, and gotten you to where you are now.
Yeah, I started in Middale Schools. It's just east of the metro in Oklahoma City. I went to Carl Albert Middle School and Carl Albert High School. Both of those music experiences were not anything that I thought that I would actually be interested in, because I was always going to be into sports. I was big into football, played a little bit of basketball as well. But I remember my actual first day of junior high band, I had signed up for percussion because that was clearly the coolest thing that you could possibly do. And I was in that class for a couple of days, and the head band director at the time, she was like, "I do not want to lose you out of band, because I think you're very smart and very bright, but I don't have a tuba player. I'm trying a bunch of people on tuba. I'd like to see if you'd like it at all." And I played it, and it went okay, enough for, and it's fun, being on this side knowing probably what happened, and they were just like, "Oh, we have to have this happen." And they did everything to coax me into that class, and then I had 2 days of percussion, and then I was in a little brass class playing tuba. Which is very funny, because that's the last instrument I thought that I was ever going to play, and then it kind of led me all the way to where I'm at right now. And then when I got into high school, I kind of just fell in love with Win Lit, with concert band music for contests. I think it's funny because I was so bad at so many stuff. First thing that we ever played in high school band for contest was Blue Lake Overture by John Barnes Chance, and it was the first test I took for Martin King, who was my band director at high school, and I got a 36 on that test. I still have that piece of paper with all his markings on it, all the things that needed to be better, where I was like, "Oh no, I don't think I'm ever good at this."
Is it out of 100?
Yes, it was out of 100.
Okay, all right.
And it was like, "You have a lot of work to do on this," but both Becky Scott, who was my junior high band director, and Martin King, who were my high school band directors, were full servants to all their students that were in the band program. The amount of extra hours, giving whatever free lessons necessary to help kids grow in the way that they needed to. Because It's a military city, so we're kind of middle class. So it's not like a lot of kids were able to afford private lessons, or that there were a lot of private lesson teachers around. So a lot of those teachers were kind of doing it on their own. Like Martin was probably giving 8 to 10 free lessons a week to
Hmm.
kids just because he knew they had it in them, and he liked working with them, and it showed because the band was able to really play above their level of what they should have been able to play for a lot of that stuff. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how I started with that. And it's funny because I was not bad at football at all. I still did both of those all the way until my junior year of high school. And my football coaches were like, okay, we really hate this, but it's time to kind of make a decision on what you want to do. And I was like, oh, well, I hate football practice. I only like playing in the games, but I
Yeah,
like playing my tuba even when it's not a concert. So I think I'm going to pick that instead. I also don't want to be 400 pounds just so I could play in college and in the NFL.
sure.
uh, and then I got more dedicated to playing my instrument. I still wish I had a private lesson teacher in high school because I was still doing very high school boy things and like wanting to make all region and all state and like waiting as long as I possibly could to like cram all of that stuff and kind of coast on whatever inherent talent and like ability to like just woodshop poorly and practice really, really bad and then still make it in and feel good about it.
Nice.
Until it was time to get to college. And I had auditioned, and it was so funny. Martin King had no idea that I wanted to go do music ed. And when he found out, he was like, we have work to do to get you there,
Yeah.
to make sure that you're ready for all the things. But I auditioned at honestly only 3 places. I auditioned at OU and UNT and Oklahoma City University, and all of them offered some money, and then OCU offered the most money.
There you go.
So I went there.
Choice made.
Exactly.
And so remind me what year you started in OCU or what year you graduated, either way you want to do it.
I graduated high school in 2010. So I started the fall of 2010 at
Yeah.
OCU.
So we just missed each other, but obviously I
Exactly.
came back a lot. So that's when we, and you knew me during that time of my life. Anyway, so you made it through OCU. And then kind of just take us through some, because I know you've had a number of teaching positions. So I'm just kind of curious if you take us through some of those teaching positions and then we'll dive in.
Well, actually, it's the first job that I got is the one that I'm still at. I just have done other things because of the
Oh,
nature of how OCU is. But I can still start with the way OCU happened. It's actually very funny. I was recruited by Ron Von Drew, who was, of course, there whenever you were there.
yeah.
And my freshman year was his actual last year at OCU. So then my sophomore year, they hired Ryan Robinson, who's now at Oklahoma State University. And I think between him and Dr. Pina and Dr. DeVito, like I, I kind of just fell in love with all the stuff in that school.
Yeah.
I was a way better student at the university level than I was in high school, mostly because it was finally like I get to do the things that I want to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Instead of all the other stuff. But that was all very helpful. Um, the music ed program was really solid. There's a lot of universities where the music ed and the ed program at the universities don't like do a great job of working together. But I felt like at least the time that I was there at OCU, they worked really well together, at least trying to accommodate and understand the differences and the similarities of music education as opposed to rest education. Because if you ask a mu ed major going into regular education classes, they're like, a lot of this does not check out
Right.
with
Yeah,
what
it's
we're
so
doing.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it's commendable to the ed program at OCU and to be a little bit more flexible with that. And that made it a little bit easier to get into what I wanted to do. But as you know, Oklahoma City University does not have a football team, which is fantastic, which means I got to tech marching band the entire time. I actually worked a lot. I waited tables and I played in quintets for church gigs, and I teched marching band pretty much every year. And I got to tech at my alma mater at Carl Albert. And at that time, they had a different director. It was Sarah Neely, who is currently the orchestra director at Edmond Santa Fe High School. But after she left Carl Albert, where I was, she ended up being the director of bands at Santa Fe. which was the call whenever I graduated in the fall of 14. I then did a lot of long-term subbing in the spring of 15, just to kind of get my name out there and do as much work as I could.
Mm.
And then there was an opening at Summit Middle School, and I applied and got very lucky to receive that job in the spring of 15. I actually got that call on my birthday. That's
nice. That's a good birthday present.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you've been there ever since. And then when did you, we have assistant band director at Edmond Santa Fe. That was later.
Well, it's kind of a job. Both of those jobs work at the same time.
I gotcha. So you've just been doing. See, I should know this stuff, but I guess I don't listen when we talk, because I'm sure you've told this to me before. But now that it's official on the podcast, I'll actually remember. But so yeah, you've been doing what I love about your story, and what I'm excited to dig into is that you have experience at the high school and the middle school level. And so I'll be very interested once we get in there to talk about differences between education styles of these two age levels. And obviously, having been through the academia, the undergraduate or college level, it's just like you've got a lot of experience and lots of different levels. And so I'm pretty excited to dig in. The first question on my list is, looking back at your time at Oklahoma City University, what experiences best prepared you for your teaching career?
I think that is twofold. It kind of depends on the type of person you are experiencing what you're going through. Ability and understanding of music and performance, all of those things I kind of lump into one thing. So the performance opportunities and all the ensembles that I was in, like Michael Anderson was the coach of the brass quintet that I got to play in, which I care so deeply about chamber music because of that experience.
Sure.
Because I've listened to a couple of these episodes, but I may be like repeating, like we're preaching to the choir, like how important and transformative that can be for your own individual musicality and musicianship. So it stuck with me for a long time, the importance of chamber music. But then also, I mentioned earlier, Dr. Cavito and Dr. Heine, and also Dr. Pritchett too, of just a very solid foundation in music theory and oral skills that make you more comfortable explaining concepts to students in a way that you don't even realize how quickly you've analyzed and understood something that they're about to have to do whenever they get new music. That kind of, if you are privy to what you already know and privy to the way that other kids learn, then like it's a beautiful concoction that comes of being able to give information in a new way that maybe you wish you had gotten it this way, or you can kind of pick tools from all that stuff. And I guess I kind of bled it into the second part. Those particular professors were so good at delivering information that became a performance in itself.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, we're learning about augmenting 6 chords, and then Dr. Heine is giving you a sheet that says, I only want you to think about this piece of paper for 3 weeks while we're going over this, so that you don't have to get confused or bogged down in any of the other stuff that we're going through.
Yeah.
Or even something as simple as kind of building chords like it's knowing your times tables, where it's just like, he's got F major, go, spell it. And it's like, spell 100 chords. And even if you put the accidental a little bit in the wrong place, you're getting like a little tick -1 because it's like you have to process at this speed so that your homework doesn't take so long.
Sure.
So it's an art in itself to kind of guide in the way that makes them feel like they're accomplishing what they need to accomplish, but it's still fun and engaging, and not, I don't know, you don't want them to use excess brain power because that's kind of what keeps them from wanting to learn more.
Sure. I've got another one. It's not on this list, but I'm sure you'll be able to speak to it. I teach at the University of North Alabama, and I've got great students. I really enjoy working with them, but they're I believe they're all education majors. And so their value system is a little bit different than what mine was, because I was so performance minded. And I've had the conversation with at least one student of, why do I need to get better at my instrument if I'm going to become a band director? And I would be I know how I would answer this, or at least how I have tried to rationalize why it's worth it to practice the trumpet in my case, with my students' case. But I'm just curious, like, what, like looking back and then now being a band director, like how would you answer that question?
Um, it's important, and I can't even. I could do probably about an hour and a half on this question
Well,
about
let's try
how
to make it
important it
like less than that, a little bit less than that.
is. So again, I'll have to go back to my high school experience. So Martin King is kind of a jack of all trades. He's insane. He can play probably at like an undergraduate level at pretty much every single instrument. So the importance of being able to model for a student, especially at the middle school level, is unmatched. You won't have a good clarinet section. They don't know what they're supposed to sound.
Yeah.
And the same for all the instruments. And it matters that you can have a concept in your ear and then just be upset when they can't do it. But if you have to show them they have no concept whatsoever about what you're trying to get. They're literally just listening to what you say. And the more that you teach, the more you realize like the less you say and the more that you show is going to get you where you want to go faster. But like I said, Martin could model anything, and there's stuff you didn't even know that he could play. Where most band directors that I know probably have like two instruments probably that they're just handy while they're teaching every single day to like model. Oh, this line didn't sound right. I want it to sound like this. They'll whip out a trumpet and do it, or they'll rip out a flute and do it. But he was like, "Oh, you need help on your all region music. Let me go grab a tuba and then just be able to play it." So, like for me, I like grew up thinking that band directors literally could just play everything all the time on every instrument. Um, so that mattered a whole lot to me. And I have a private studio as well. And I remember specifically a lesson with Dr. Robinson, who's now at OSU, when we were working on Symphonic Met. And it was probably like my second week working on it. And I still was not hacking it at the level that I needed to. And it was a very like stirred in your face moment of like, what are you going to do whenever you have a student in the future that has to play this and you know that you never could
Yeah.
have played? And I was like, okay, yeah, okay, I've got a lot of work to do. You don't want to be practicing for private lessons for your kids that you're already teaching.
Yeah,
So
sure.
you want to you want to be at a level where the things that you want out of them is something that you can actually demonstrate because it matters the most. That's how most humans learn anything. Like if I don't know how to do something, I'm going to go on YouTube and watch someone do it, so I know what's supposed to happen.
Yeah. I know. I totally agree. I mean, and so I have sort of a secondary question. What you're describing, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're describing is sort of having the capacity to, at like a reasonably high level, demonstrate most, if not all, the different instruments. There's also a possibility of like, well, I'm not going to learn all the instruments. I'm going to learn my instrument, but I'm going to go so deep and I'm going to understand so much nuance about music making and things like that. Is there value to that much deeper level on one instrument
Oh, absolutely.
versus, so like if you had to choose one hypothetically, which would be a better use of your time?
For being a band director specifically, I think that mine is probably skewed a little bit because of how more involved in middle school that I am. Because I couldn't play a lick of flute whenever I apologize. I lied in my interview. They're like, rate your proficiency on how much you could play these instruments coming out of school. And I 1 in 10. I think I put like 6 on flute, and I had never made a sound
That's
on an instrument.
some
but
confidence, bro.
but then they were like, okay, you're going to teach the flute class. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. The reason I bring all that up is in that process that summer of working really hard on the flute and watching videos and talking to friends and stuff like that, I learned a whole lot about all of the ways that it can go wrong too.
Yeah.
So then your ear becomes a little bit more adept into, oh, this is what they're doing wrong. And I know how to fix that because I did that wrong. This is what I did to
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah.
But I also think that at the higher levels, because I do a lot of chamber stuff at the high school and I've been working honor bands the last couple of years, it is important to work on the nuances of your instrument because you start talking about voicing and things like that for all of the instruments, and you start getting a clearer idea of what do I need to say to this kid to help blend the tone in whatever particular way that we're aiming for. Like it may be they nailed it. They've learned notes and rhythms. They're actually doing all the dynamics. The articulations are happening. But it's like, I just don't really love the actual tone quality being
Sure.
produced. And I need to know a little bit more about that instrument. And maybe if I know enough about my instrument, I can translate a little bit more to everything else.
Yeah, because in my mind, musicality on one instrument, beyond like the actual unique parts of each instrument, there are certain things that are ubiquitous, right? It's going to apply to everybody. And so that to me is like some of the argument I use with saying, like, if you're only going to be able to teach up to the level of knowledge you have. And so
Exactly.
if you want a band that's killing and going, and you're the one that's supposed to explain how to do that to them, and you yourself don't know how to kill it at the level that you want them to kill it, then it's going to be hard. It's going to be really difficult to get that to happen.
Exactly.
We're talking just kind of just generally about like how to be an effective band director. And I feel like we could just transition into the next question, which is just giving sort of a general statement on your values or philosophies that guide your teaching in the band room. Like what types of, this question is self-explanatory, but like this kind of question is very interesting to me because I like in my life to now think about things in terms of principles or pillars that, as long as I'm doing the thing that I think is the right thing in terms of what I value, whether everything is happening exactly the way I want to or not is less relevant to me than me being like true to like what I think is the right thing. And then, assessing as you go along. And so I'm just curious for your, like, if you were to answer this in, 2025, what values kind of guide your interactions with the students and the music you're trying to make?
First and foremost, it is still an elective class. I'm speaking middle school level, and especially in sixth grade and beginning band. Like they've chosen something that looks interesting to them. So I am trying to create an environment that kind of doesn't feel like school. I want them to feel like they're at a summer camp every day for an hour, and they get to do something really really fun that they chose that they wanted to do. And in that, I'm trying to find ways where they have a couple of understandings. They have an understanding of how cool and how interesting it is to be able to communicate in a language that like everybody speaks. That music is it doesn't kind of just happen. There's a lot of work that kind of goes into it also. So like I'm not trying to farm like the next philharmonic musician or honestly not even the next band director. I'm just trying to let them understand that the people that have those jobs are both really talented but also really hard workers. Because truly, I'm teaching. I couldn't teach any other subject. I'm teaching because I want people to be hardworking people, and I want them to have music as that outlet because that's what I love the most in the world is music. So I want to use that any way that I can to help make it the nicest and most efficient and most hardworking people that exist, so that I'm yelling less while I'm driving and I'm considering.
Yeah.
And there's people that know how to work together and things like that. But if I'm talking truly fundamentally in the classroom, I'm working on them making a really characteristic sound and their literacy on their instrument. And the older they get, their ability to play in an ensemble. And we try to provide as many opportunities for all the things as possible. And juggling that comes with its own challenges, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later. But if I were to just kind of put it in one or two sentences, the philosophy is to just enrich their interests in music as much as possible while creating an environment that gives them the option to go as far as they want to.
That's very cool. I love that. Like, cause yeah, it's like, that's cool. I like that. Do you try to explain to them some of the value that music and like practicing an instrument and all those skills you learned? Do you aim to try to explain some of how that could benefit them, like in other, in other classes or just life in general? Or do you kind of just stick with music and just and like roll them with that as much as possible?
Uh, it is. I would say yes. I think that most days I'm probably alluding to something else. I'm like, your doctor and your dentist probably played an instrument. Any surgeon that you've ever met probably played an instrument. Like the anything that you want to do that makes you you, and you want to do it at a high level, this will help you get there, because this doesn't just happen. Like successes in this is not like, ooh, I picked it up and I made an instrument, or I made a beautiful sound, and now I'm a fantastic musician. Like there's no musician not putting in some hours, and the hope is that they can just translate that to whatever else they do. Like I have the same speech at the end of 8th grade where I talked about how excited I am to have the kids that are coming to the high school, and I say, if you're not doing this in high school, I really hope you're doing something. And if you're doing something, you need to do it at the level that I forced you to do this.
Yeah.
Because of it, there's no reason to do it if not.
Yeah. It's awesome, man. This next question is one that I'm very curious because just to see how you answer it. How do you keep students engaged, especially in middle school, and motivation can vary a lot? Like this would seem almost impossible to me because you're going to get such a wide variety. You're going to get like a kid like me who comes into middle school and is like pretty good at it, but like doesn't care about anything. And then you're going to get another kid who works really hard, but has like whatever level of talent. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just, and you got to get everybody to work together. I'm very curious if you have thoughts on this.
That is so involved in many different ways. I'd say the paramount thing is creating a relationship. It's similar to what I was talking about earlier, where that hour in that room, like even I ask every year for different people to give me ideas of way to decorate the room for when they walk in. It straight up is not school. So the idea is when they walk in, they're going into a place that is for them. Like we're on their time right now on the thing that they really want to do. And then the relationship building is paramount to anything, because we're working in such a human art that what we're trying to do eventually at the highest level is communicate literally someone else's emotions that they wrote on manuscript paper.
Right.
So you're trying to connect with them so that you can make as many connections along the way as you possibly can, to where they're always wanting something out. Now, that is not successful a lot of the time because of what you're talking about, because of all of the different levels that are going on. But the best thing that you can always do is try and find a way to reach all of them. If you've made those relationships, you have an idea of what can be slotted. So, like you were talking about, you coming in, if I can recognize that talent and they clearly don't care about anything else, then it becomes like, okay, now I need to very aggressively hit a communication piece with the parents and go, hey, I'm noticing a whole lot of talent with Ryan. I would love to continue to enrich what's going on with him. Do you have any ideas of things that like he's interested in that I can kind of help him continue getting motivated with this instrument? And then can you help at home? That comes with its own issues, kind of depending on what home is like for each of these kids. But those two things first, your own personal relationship with the kids, and then trying to communicate with the parents at home of like, okay, we've got something going here. Or even if it's like, I can tell that they think they're not that good at this, but if they just keep every day trying to be a little bit better, I guarantee you it's going to go well. It takes so much energy to do that, I'll
Yeah, I'm
say.
sure.
But it is very much worth it whenever you get to keep them for a while. My setup is really nice. I teach 2 beginner classes. I teach a flute class and a brass class. There are other directors that teach the other instruments as well. But then in 7th grade, I have all of them except for the percussionist. And then in 8th grade, they're all in one class. So if you play the flute or a low brass instrument, I have you all the way through middle school. So the ability to build those bridges and those relationships with both the kids and the parents continues moving, where it'll be like maybe the very first test was not a great test for the kid, and they like might cry a little bit, and then you just send that communication piece home to the parent like, hey, they had a tough day. This is not the first time that's happened in a band class at all. It's going to feel like they're awful at everything.
Yeah.
So as you can continue encouraging them, and then you have that connection with the parent, and they know that you care about the student also. So that's easier for them to like kind of push. Also, like, no, I need you to practice so you feel better about the next test.
Yeah.
And then it's the follow up, because then they'll come back and have a better test and be like, hey, I want to let you know, completely knocked it out of the park on this next test. So I just want them to feel validated about the actual work that they put in, because that's the whole business that I'm in, is validating effort as much as I can.
Yeah, there's a lot you could unpack with what you just said right there, but I don't think we have time. Suffice to say, everything I've read and everything I've learned, like validating effort really is like the thing, like showing people or helping encourage people to see that through effort they can achieve whatever the thing is, and it's not just a result of their intelligence or just circumstance, but it's like you put in the work and look what happened. And if you just keep doing that,
Exactly.
like I think everything I've learned, that's like among the most important things. So that's cool to hear you say. So like let's say let's say you had this like everything somehow like locked in, it just came together, and it was like, what is it like, essentially what would like an ideal, or you could say like what would a successful class, like if you could sort of design how things operated and what the vibe was like, what would an ideal classroom scenario be for you?
And that's an interesting question because of the different ways that my classrooms look in general. So, like in my beginning class, it's funny that other directors will hear me the day I go, okay, it's a class now. It'll be like maybe you're a week or two in. And it's just that the routines I no longer have to remind about the routines where it's like the students come in, put their instrument together in the correct way. Or if it's like Monday and we call it maintenance Monday, and I see the trombone players like already like, oh, I got to put slime grease on. I got like, and they just like know what they need to do. And then they're sitting and waiting for class to start. And that's not like, I don't need it to be quiet. And there are some directors that really want it to be like very much like quiet and no one's moving and nothing's going on until I start talking. I just can't operate that way. It actually makes me very anxious if they're that quiet. I'd rather them like be talking to each other and like putting their instruments together and they're getting everything ready. They've looked at the board. They already know what we're going to do today. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Turn the med on. And then everyone's ready to go. And then we just start. Those class periods when that happens, I'm just like, okay, I have the best job of the world
Yeah.
because look at this beautiful sound. All of these 11-year-olds are just like, here we go. I've got an instrument 2 times my size, but I'm like, I'm feeling great about the sound that I'm making. But then in eighth grade, because it's so ensemble based, the the best eighth grade classes I've had were, let's say we finish our daily drill, we're working on whatever thing I decided to work on that day, and then it's like, all right, let's just read something today. And by that time you've kind of found your leaders in all the sections where it's just like, okay, I'm going to pass out this music, and then I can literally just hand all of the percussion music to one of the percussionists and then like divvy it out and then be ready to go. And then, all right, let's read from rehearsal number to rehearsal number. And then, like, they do a great job. Like, they're going to miss some stuff. And then I, like, can say a correction and we do it again and it's better already. And then we just keep on going. Those are the class periods where I can, like, joke and laugh and, like, make fun of this kid for whatever. And then we keep on moving.
Yeah.
That is. That is like peak for me. It's happened a lot more the last couple of years.
That's
so
awesome.
Finding a way to keep recreating that.
My assumption, well, I would imagine this is a challenge, but my assumption is the deeper the trust that in the relationships you've built with the students, the more that happens. But you only get like, well, at most you're going to get 3 years, at least in in the middle school level. And so like, I wonder if that's like a challenge too. Like you're constantly cycling in new people so that it's like, I'm sure you feel like you like hit a groove with some students and then they move on. And then it's like, you never really get that, like, okay, now we've hit like that groove and we get to live there.
Right. And that is the part that is, probably the most bittersweet is because you get those groups that by the time they're in eighth grade where they really work together. They work really well. We feel like we put all the work in. We have all the right color instruments in, so the instrumentation is nice. So we get to play exactly the lick that we want to play. And then honestly, we just kind of you hold on to it as much as you can.
Yeah.
The good news for me is my school feeds into the high school that I go to. So a lot of those brass kids I'll see in high school marching band or any of the chamber stuff that I'll do. So then it becomes a little bit more of a continuation of it.
Yeah.
Even this past year, brass choir did Irish tune, and it's like I've always wanted to do an Irish tune brass arrangement, and it was like easily one of the more fulfilling musical teaching experiences I've had in my entire life. But it's like part of it is like I've known this kid since they were 11, and now they're ripping this horn part like in a way that's so satisfying.
That's awesome.
So yeah, no, you're right. I probably liken it to probably even more so now. like a university coach of any sport, where you're just like, okay, let's get this together for, I guess, 8 months and see how well it can go before it's all different again.
Yeah. You know, it's fun to listen to you talk, you know, because you've just got a lot of experience, you know what I mean? And you've been doing it for a long time. And I've watched over the years, you know, like you'll sometimes at the end of a school year, you'll put like a Facebook post up that's like, man, I learned so much this year. Or like, I feel like around year 3 or year 4 or something, you posted like, okay, now I feel like I finally understand what's going on, something like that. So I'm kind of curious if, you know, you don't have to go super deep on this, just a couple of things if you can think of it. But what are some things that you either feel like you've learned in your 10 years that have changed from when you first started, or things that you thought that, you know, you walked in 2015, you're like, this is how things are going to work. And then you're like, it doesn't work like that at all. Like, I'm just curious for some sort of generalities that you were wrong about, almost, if you want to put it that way.
This is an excellent question for me, because had the wherewithal in my first year to make a doc that literally is called "This Did Not Work."
Oh, all right.
And like, why? But even like philosophically, most of it is just like, they're kids. Like, you forget, you come out of school and like maybe the last thing you played is like dog breath variations, or like music for Prague, and then you were working on your own solo stuff, and you're like working on all this high level stuff, and then you're trying to put your instrument in the hands of a 11-year-old, and then your inclination is to talk way too much. And I think that even now, I'm like, how can I talk less and just make them play more and have more fun with them being successful playing the instrument? That's what they signed up to do. So I think that that's probably number one, is just talking way less. Like, there are things that you have to explain, and at the beginning of the year, when you're trying to set up all your expectations and the way that the classroom should be operating, that requires a little bit of talking. But I'm really looking for every year, how much less can I speak? There have been whole class sessions where I didn't talk at all, where I just kind of mimed everything that I wanted to do, just to see how much actual playing we could get done, and how much fun the kids would have, and how much they actually already know, because the routine has been set up. So it's like, you don't have to say everything at the time. It's, if the routine has been happening the same way, if you turn on the Met every single day right when the class period starts, and they do a block F or they do some type of Remington, then they're going to do it every day. They already know what's going on. And then it makes, when you do speak, a little bit more impactful.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then, you know, when you think of school, literally, and Charlie Brown is a wah 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 wah, because it's like this. It's so easy to tune it out and kind of not care and not really land whenever you're like, yes, you want to be reinforcing what you're saying all the time, but the reinforcement should come when they really need it. I think that I was probably in the habit of just like saying it because I knew it needed to be said, without like hearing something that made me say that.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I've encountered this as well. I'm a talker. Like I can talk a lot, you know, and I can talk.
Yeah.
I can sometimes like sort of, you could say, like, beat a dead horse, and sometimes I catch myself doing that, thinking like, I just want to make sure you understand what I'm saying, and I'm becoming more and more aware that it's very possible that I've said a lot of words, and that person did not digest like any of what I just said. Like, they just, and then I'm like, does that make sense? And then they go, oh yeah, for sure. And then they just told me that so we could move on. Like, like also being a parent and seeing this stuff happening like in my own house, like, helps me be like, they don't understand anything I just said. They just don't want to talk about it anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this kind of leads into another thing I enjoy asking, because, you know, it's just kind of cool to hear people think about and talk about failures. And maybe, I don't know if this would be similar to what you just said, or if you have a different way of thinking about it. But oftentimes failures teach us way more than just being successful. I mean, it's not oftentimes, it does. It teaches us way more to fail than to be successful. But sometimes they're painful, you know, to go through it. So I'm just curious. It could be similar to what you were just saying or something different. But can you think of a time that you did something where you're like, man, that was a real failure and I learned some hard lessons, but in a weird way, I'm glad because of what I learned from it?
Yeah, I think in an effort, I'm always trying to push. I want them to think that they can't play something and overcome, and because we're looking for the validation of hard work. And I think that early on, I was so bad at over programming for everything. I'd over program for the winter concert. I'd over program for the contest season. I'd over program even kids solos whenever I was first giving private lessons. And I was like, yeah, they can make this work. And it's like, that's, there's no way they should be working on that at all. And sometimes you have to decide whether or not that is a little bit of ego involved, where it's like, I want my student to be able to play this, and it's like, nope, you should want your student to be successful. Like
Yeah.
that's it. And I think that those are some hard things to learn um, along the way. I think I have a good enough staff now where we work really well together. Where I go, hey, I'm thinking about playing this, and they'll take the time to like go through it and they go, well, and they'll like just make their own checklists and go, if someone else were asking me about playing this and it wasn't you, I go, do you have this in your clarinets? Do you have this section? Do you have this? Is it going to work out? And then you have to be like, all right, I can't do anything else. I'm going to fix it no matter how bad I want to actually play it.
Yeah.
So
I see.
I think that's probably where I had the most missteps. And I'm not saying I'm perfect about it now. There are stretches that I make where I'm like, okay, maybe it probably would have worked out, but then like the last year we had like 3 random days we didn't have school because we had tornadoes or something like that. So that it's like, okay, it was enough of a stretch that every rehearsal was going to count for that to be successful. Um, so maybe we need to plan a little bit where it's like, okay, if the bar is here, the bar doesn't need to come all the way down here. It just needs to be a little bit lower.
Sure.
So that again, the success is the most important thing that you can have. And that looks a lot of different ways. There are some of those times where I overprogrammed and there were students that were higher level that like attained some success on doing something more difficult than they could have. But then it's like, I'm really losing students that need something a little bit easier to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, like it's because we have like our bias, like you said, like you're in college and that's like the thing you're thinking about. And then you get in there and you're like, I got to learn this whole new way. And obviously you've mentioned some challenges. I'm curious if you want to expand, if there's other challenges that you could think of that are like just things that you may have been aware of, people have told you about and you had already thought through, or things that you're like, whoa, I was not prepared for this at all. And I got to think, because obviously I'm imagining it's just, there's got to be, countless things that you're constantly juggling and balancing while trying to also like encourage and like build up these kids, love of music. It just sounds like a lot. And I'm just curious if there's even more things that maybe you've encountered that are challenges and ways that you've found that you could successfully, meet those challenges, anything like that.
Some of the challenges you talk about in your ed classes, and some of them you're shocked at how little like no one says anything about. Like as a band director, pretty much at any level. I mean, some of them get lucky if you're a specialist. Oklahoma's, I think, a little bit different than a lot of other places because most directors have to do things outside of their specialty area. I know that a lot of other places where it's like, if you're a percussionist, you can pretty easily just find a job where all you do is percussion all day long. You have to do nothing else, and that works out great. But like for my job specifically, like the administrative work is something that I don't think that I'm bad at, but it takes so much time. It is easily the least fun part of the job. And not even because it's like difficult, it just takes up too much time. Like I have a long plan period because it's backed up against my lunch. It's like almost 2 hours. But most days I still have to bring my lunch because I'm going to be working straight through that to make sure that my activity account is up to date and that buses are getting scheduled whenever it's time to go on trips and things like that. And contest entry fees are paid and fundraisers are set up and all of those things.
Yeah.
But then even still, like the idea, our model, we only start, was it 6 instruments? We start flute, clarinet, um, saxophone, trumpet, trombone, and percussion. So then figuring out which kid to switch to the oboe, the bassoon, euphonium, horn, and tuba. It's like, I think it truly is a bit of an art and a bit of a science. Um, and there's different ways that have worked out for us to make that successful. Like, I've had years where we just scheduled the winter concert for the beginners pretty early so that I could spend the 2 weeks before winter break where, okay, every trumpet player is going to try the horn. We're going to see who bites it, who likes it, or who like just makes a really nice sound. Just so we could be like, it's kind of the same thing we've been talking about, where I can show them videos and have someone come out and play the horn, and they're like, "Wow, it's pretty cool." But until they hold it and play it and like see other things going on, they're not going to know if they want to do it. And you're really depending on those kids, especially when we get to the high school level. So like, there are internal pressures and there's not really external pressures, but I'm a part of also the high school as well. So it's like, I want there to be a lot of healthy competition at the high school on all the instruments. And it's like, we don't want to be setting up like one or two oboes or one or two bassoons when it's like, we got plans on playing like American Flute in a couple of years, something like that, you know. So it's like, we got to have the instrumentation available at all times. But yeah, there's tons of things I could talk for days and days and days
Sure.
about like
Yeah.
the different things you don't know about. And you touched on one of them earlier about like kids kind of being in and out. My particular school is kind of what we call a high movement school. Like, the development of like houses is like not necessarily able to continue growing. So there's some apartments and then there's some houses. So like, the kids move all the time. So you'll get a kid to come in to be absolutely killer. You put a bunch of love and effort into them, and they become an all-region player at the middle school level. And they're like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm moving to either this district down the road, or I'm moving to Ohio, or like my parents are in the military. I'm moving." So you're just like, "Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. I'm happy for you." But it's like, yeah, it really sucks.
Yeah, it's hard to picture because you're like, it's not just, I mean, in my opinion, if you're doing your job like the difficult but the right way, it's like you're building relationships with these individuals. So it's not just not like, oh, I know you're sort of in jest saying like we're losing a great player or whatever, but also it's just
Yeah.
like someone that I've spent time trying to like build a
Oh yeah.
relationship with, and then I'm happy for them. It's like they got to do what they got to do, but I would imagine, yeah, I would imagine that's tough. One of these other questions that's kind of related to that is just with limited time and resource, how do you prioritize what students need most musically? So that could mean a lot of things. It could be like, how do you run? This would be sort of my first thing I'd be interested in. How do you run a rehearsal so that like that you're getting the most out of it, keeping students engaged while also actually educating them and not just like running straight through everything over and over and over again. But then the other way you could think about it is when you have, so you talked about, well, when I overprogrammed, I had some students who were, the skill was a little bit higher at that stage. They got a lot out of it, but I left a lot of people behind. And so like, if you're going to program so more of the students with less skill are able to enjoy the process, do you try to find extra ways to get those higher functioning kids just with something else that's going to keep them engaged? Like, how do you manage? Those would be the two things I'm most interested in how you manage.
That I love talking about because that has been on my mind every single day since I first walked in the door, because it's such an important part, and I think the most actually difficult part of being a middle school band director specifically. And for me, I think the answer is creating as much opportunity as possible. And that could be so many different things. So even if we're like just in the rehearsal setting, um, but I'll do it kind of two ways. Overall, let's say we're working on just our concert music. Every band director that I know just has a hit list. Like, we'll work on rehearsal number to kind of start each piece. We'll read through blah 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 blah, and then I'll do some big chunks, and I'll just start recording rehearsals, and then I just start sending the recordings to my other colleagues, and then I'll listen to them, and then they'll send like a couple things, and then I'll just make one big list, and then sometimes I put it on the board to start the day, where I'm like, this is what everybody else heard, and then sometimes with reflection pieces too, where like if it's the beginning of the week, sometimes I kind of want to get them like back to me because they have the weekend. So I do as much as I can and try to incorporate the other stuff with the building ones also. So it's like there's some written assignments sometimes where I will play a recording from a rehearsal before, and they like do a little bit of a reflection of their Chromebooks or whatever, and then we'll kind of get into at least two or three of the things that were on that list. And then what I want to incorporate more is a little bit more like, okay, I know that you heard it, but like, tell me what we did to fix these three things on the
Mm.
list. Because you want them to be able to hold that and not like Mr. Djonorh just did it. Like, we fixed this and this is what it took to fix it. So they
Like
become a little bit more
actual education.
self-sufficient. Yeah, exactly.
Because like I've sort of taught at programs, not a lot. I haven't done this a lot, but I've gone in and observed, like rehearsals, and like what I've observed are sometimes it can just look like it's almost like by brute force we're going to learn this thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're just going to do it over and over. And so the students kind of figure out some very close version of what it should sound like without actually potentially understanding even like how some rhythms and things like work together. And so
I learned some things that way. I tell my kids all the time the reason I'm so passionate about teaching 6-8 is because I did not understand it all of the way through high school. Like I just didn't actually
yeah.
get it. I was very good at looking at it and go, I think that sounds like this, and then being right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I was teaching a class of just trumpeters, and I was like, all right, we're going to do this thing in 6-8. And they started playing, and I was like, these students have gotten really good at guessing and being very close to it, but not actually understanding there's 6 beats in the measure and the 8th note gets the beat. And so then when we have a dot, it becomes this thing. And so, yeah, to me, that would be one of but I get it because there's so much you're trying to accomplish in a day that like, it almost feels like, do I have time to stop? Especially like I would imagine in something like contest season or where you're just, it's like, I would imagine it's incredibly difficult to balance those two things. And so that's why I was asking. And I kind of like what you're describing. You're almost basically, it sounds like it's fine with you, especially at the age that you have, to slow down just a little bit. And like, what if we accomplished a little bit less in terms of, programmatic music, and I made sure that at least they could like start to get some understanding of like how we're tackling these things. And yeah, I think that's a really cool way to think about your stage of development.
Right. And then the other side of that, when we're talking about the gap in skill level and ability, it's creating opportunities. So, like the last 2 years, we've had now a middle school jazz band, which has been really nice. So, I'll talk about that first. Middle school jazz band's great. I'm not excellent at it. I'm getting much better. I'm learning about that. It's like I think I did like a semester of jazz improv with John Allen, and I was not good at that either. But we want to create as many opportunities as possible. And then in our 7th and 8th grade, when we start doing chamber music, it is a free for all. I tell them I think in that contest isn't even until April, but in 7th grade, the first year that they do it, we do a whole unit that is a memory unit because I have them memorize their solo when they go to contests. Strictly because if they keep doing this long enough, they're going to get to high school marching band and they're going to have to memorize the shit. It's like literally the only reason I have to memorize their solo. And it's usually not that hard a solo to memorize. And honestly, the tests that they take are like 8 to 16 measures at a time of their memory. So they have to do that. But then I tell them on the flip side of that, you're going to be able to do your ensembles, your duets and trios and quartets with your friends, and you can play anything.
Right.
Like, tell me what you want to play, and then I'll go into finale and put it in, and I'll make it work for your friends. So like, I've arranged like all types of anime and like video game music and stuff like that, just to get them to get interested in that aspect of playing.
Yeah. So a nice balance. It sounds like.
Yeah. So then it enriches those kids that like are really into it already, because they'll find all their music anyway. They're like, I found this thing on YouTube. Can we play it? And I'm like, I mean, that sounds way too hard for you, but I'll see what I can do about arranging it in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. That's funny, man.
So those are the opportunities. I like to try to give as many opportunities for growth in all the areas as possible. But then it makes it to where it's like, okay, we're doing the solo section. I need to make this much easier for these 5 to 6 kids. So one of the solo options is this one. And then they're like, okay, I'm having some success with this. And then again, they're getting validated for their efforts.
Yeah. Well, there's another part to that. I'm going to say it now, and hopefully we have time in a second to talk about it. But that's like a lot that you are giving. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot from you, you know? And like, okay, I'll just ask the question. Like, I think it's admirable. I think it's amazing. And I think people really like, they notice it, you know, when someone's willing to go the extra mile. I mean, I've had a lot of great band directors. And you know, Dr. Mailman at OCU, my high school band director, his name is Terry Rush. You know, middle school was Shelly Lenz. Before that, my elementary school, Dottie. Like I had like amazing ones. But this story sticks out for me is from Northwestern with Dr. Thompson, Mallory Thompson. And you know, we would rehearse in 2 separate spaces. We would rehearse in like a rehearsal room and then we would get to be on stage where we would perform and we would rehearse there. And whenever we rehearsed on stage, she would record that rehearsal. And then later that night, we would get like 5 pages of notes. Like that night. Yeah. We would, and like every time, you know, it wasn't like, oh, sometimes it's this or that. You know, she just gave a lot. And it's like, okay, when the person who's leading the ensemble is willing to work that hard and serve everybody in the ensemble like that, especially for people who are paying attention, like they notice. And it's just sort of like what you're saying. She didn't have to demand that people would respect her. She treated people respectfully, but she showed like, this is the kind of work I'm willing to do. And I'll meet you if you're willing to do it. But I imagine it takes a lot out of a person to be that way. So I'm curious, like, how do you, it's like, you know, it's like the self-care question or whatever. But I'm just curious, like, how do you make sure it make you, gosh, this is the best way to do it. How do you make sure it doesn't take so much away from you that you can't fully functionally, like, you know, do your job, like that eventually it'll overflow and then it's like, now I can't really do it the way I want to do it. Like, how do you balance that?
It's usually the mantra. It's funny because we all care so much, all the 5 of us in our kind of band director cluster. And the mantra is, it's just band. we try to remember that like at the end of the day. It's, I don't know, man. I think that I'm a person that likes to really be as present as possible. So when you're present for some of the victories that the kids have, there is nothing like that. Like this past year, our high school band went to our first BOA in Flagstaff, and it's been a journey for me, specifically me and Tony and Andy, because we've been through a lot of different versions of our marching band. This high school used to be pretty much centered on concert band music and chamber music for a long time, especially my first 5 years before COVID. And then when we came back from COVID, we were on an A/B schedule. So they like split this district up by people that were living next to each other. So it was like, if you're living next to each other, these groups of kids will come on Monday and Tuesday, and then no kids are there on Wednesday. It's a planning day. And then these groups of kids will come on Thursday and Friday. So we had to teach beginning band and all of our band classes like 2 days a week, which was terrifying. And then we were just like, I'm kind of not really willing to budge on expectations on where they should be at the end of 7th grade and at the end of 8th grade. So let's kind of see what happens if we not even really cram all this in there, but like just try to accelerate as much as we possibly can. And we learned how adaptable kids are in that situation when they really want to do something. And I think it's always just I don't even know what the term is. Someone smarter than me can tell you. Like, it's like a feedback loop where like you feed off of that energy of like, oh, they had success with it if they can tell and they feel it. So I say all that to say we did that also with the marching band, and that year's show I'm pretty sure was Rocky Point Holiday. it was the hardest music that I had taught outside ever.
Mm.
And they absolutely crushed it, like in a
Wow.
way where I think there was a rehearsal where I was probably like in tears in the ballad. I was like, this is beautiful for no reason. Like, I don't understand. And it's like, a whole lot's going on in the world where I'm just like, I'm just glad that we get to do this, because that happened. We were like, cool, we're all going to lose our jobs. We literally just put air in a room all day long, so they're not going to let us do that.
Mm.
So it was a pretty transformative and important moment. And then our buddy Dane ended up taking over as the head director after that year. And he's a little bit more into marching band, so each year was a little bit more of a build. The book got harder every year. I got more nervous every year. This past year, we had the first circle by Pat Metheny, which
Okay.
is like, why? It's like, why? Why is anyone doing this outside? Tony, who does the jazz band, had won the state championship the 2 years, or that year and the year before. So we knew that we also just had him as a resource to be like, hey, how do we not look like idiots outside trying to do this at a high level? And the whole season meant a lot to me, because those seniors um, like didn't get their freshman year well because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I was just like, hey, let's really kind of do this to the end. Like, let's max out what we could possibly do with this particular show. It's been my favorite show I've ever worked on my entire life. And that massing at the end of that contest at BOA, for them to like hear their score and hear their name announced, is like, those core memories will never leave you. The Thunder won the championship last night, and I cried and yelled, and I'm surprised my voice works today. But I am like literally comparing right now this thing that happened last night to still what happened all the way back in October with that video. And it's like, I still have more like loaded up tears if I let that happen for that Arizona performance than I do for this thing that I care a whole lot off in my own personal
Yeah.
life. Because when you're so thoroughly involved in their lives, and we talk about that relationship piece, it does become like, okay, I am doing a lot. Everyone else that's not a band director is like, dude, you are always busy. Families like, you're always busy. Like, I am busy to create the days that I want to create. So I I have been better than I was like the last couple of years about like doing a good job of my meditation and working out and all those things, which I've got a plan for. I think being a little bit better about those things as they move forward. Um, And sometimes it does get to where like, okay, I think I've kind of reached a breaking point where
Mm.
it's like, all right, I think I'm just going to take like a day off, just one off and not even like a fake day off where I go home and like freak out about how I took a day off and all the stuff that I'm missing, where it's like, I'm going to take a day off and do nothing
Yeah.
and nothing at all. I'm going to play video games. I'm going to do a puzzle. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to not think about that in that way, and watch something that continues to inspire me to do what I do. For me, this summer is watching basketball documentaries and just being like, oh, that's right. Kobe Bryant is an insane human being. I
Yeah.
can't believe like the way that he operated. And it's all that stuff that, for me, to inspire you have to keep inspiring yourself. So you have to keep on finding those avenues. So
Sure.
like going to Midwest, going to TMEA, going to all our conventions and watching performances and things like that are amazing. Those are the things I think that recharge
But that is such a good. I'm glad I asked that question, man. That was awesome. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like you've given so much. For someone like me who doesn't really know about that world very much, like I feel like there would be some really, really good things to like chew on and to think about. And I still feel like it would take years, obviously, to figure some of that stuff out. But I feel like there's a lot of good information, and I'm curious if you would want to try to cap it off with just like, if I was student teaching at your
me.
school or whatever, and I came to you and I was like, hey man, do you have any advice for me? Notwithstanding things that you've talked about, you could repeat it, but just like how, and you had to give a kind of a quick, yeah, sure, think about these things, think about this, don't do this, whatever. Like, how do you think you'd respond to that?
I think I would just like, don't forget that this is about kids. Like that's what this is about. It's about an 11-year-old thought that they wanted to make a hilarious bar sound on the trombone, and you're showing them everything that they could possibly do with the instrument. And you're just happy to use the instrument as a vessel for them to like open their mind a little bit to everything the world has to offer, because there's so much that you could do with just music, and sometimes it does just start with making race car sounds, and like that's like that is the kid aspect of it is the most important thing, and it's really hard, especially the older you get. That's like, if you're student teaching, I usually ask first, hey, do you want to do this? Like, do you want to be a band director, or are you getting a degree? Because if you're getting a degree, that's great. And we'll do what you need to do. But then also, like, you gotta be interested in building relationships with kids that's gonna help change their lives in a positive way.
Sure. Yeah, I almost got kicked out of band I started in 5th grade. I almost got kicked out of band because I would just show up and then I would just play it as loud as I possibly could. And my band director was like, this is a problem. He won't stop doing this. But she could be like, somehow it was the same thing you were saying. It's like, oh, clearly, like, he's just like a 5th grader. You know what I mean? He's not, it's not bad. He just thinks it's funny. And I got very close to getting kicked out. But her name was Dottie Ladman. Like, she invested in me. It wasn't long. It was a cool thing. Like, I'm very glad for all of the educator. And it's like how you described your band directors from early on. It's just like, it's like, I think, if I'm being honest, it's like unsung heroes that are easy to overlook because they're not the last teacher that somebody was with before they went on to some sort of successful whatever, right?
Right.
But it's like all of that groundwork that was laid is part of the equation, and I think it's amazing. I have lightning round questions now.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'll do my best.
This is supposed to be like, like one sentence, one word, like,
right.
Don't overthink it. Question 1, what's the instrument you wish you could play fluently?
Bassoon.
That's a weird answer. That's fine. It's fine. Okay.
There's just so many licks in all this music that I wish I could play.
Sure. Number 2, which band piece? I don't have anything against the bassoon. I just don't think it's nearly as cool as a lot of other instruments. You could have said like guitar. Anyway,
really, it's piano, but bassoon.
Yeah, piano for me too, for sure. Yeah. 2, which band piece do you secretly hope never gets programmed again?
There's none of them that hurt me that much. Probably Undertow by John Mackey.
All right. If your classroom had a theme song, what would it be?
It would probably be like some Minecraft or something.
Lava Chicken or whatever that song is.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your go-to hype song before a big concert or performance? Another way you could ask this is just like, do you have any sort of pre-concert ritual?
There's a Chance the Rapper song. It's just basically was all we got.
Cool.
It's a great one for that. Mm-hmm.
One word your students would use to describe you.
Funny.
Question 6.
Or nice.
What's the weirdest thing a student has ever said to you?
There's so many. I'll pick one. I did have one when we were in COVID times. I was like, hey, do a video and roast Mr. Djonorh. And one of the kids said he's got an uneven hairline.
That's amazing. 7, you're stranded on a desert island. What instrument are you bringing?
I'm bringing the tuba.
Yeah. 8, what's your favorite cafeteria food from your own school days? That one got by me, I guess.
It's that breakfast pizza, man. That square breakfast.
Yeah, I would go with, we had these quesadillas that, it was like, but they were amazing. And sometimes they'd have these little like green spots. It's like, I don't have any idea what that is, but I just ate it all. It was so good. What's your teacher superpower?
Patience and logic. I think that I'll usually be really upset, and then I have to go, are they doing something wrong, or am I just angry?
Yeah, it's like self-awareness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird. Yeah. Smart man.
Right. All right. I don't like this question, so I'm not going to ask it. 12. This is stupid too. Tuner app or analog tuner? Or like metronome, like tonal energy or Dr. Beat?
I use it. It's tuner app, but I mean, I use the Harmony Director a lot.
Yeah, so. That's a dumb question. Parent emails, reply immediately or wait until the end of the day?
It depends on what's going on. If it's aggressive, then it's like, all right, let me respond. Sometimes, I'll be honest with you, sometimes if a parent is coming at me and it's definitely wrong and I have receipts, I will literally stop class and go to that parent and be like, let's talk.
Nice. This will be an easy question. This is brass or woodwinds, but maybe not easy.
Brass, but there are some of my favorite things to hear are woodwind parts.
Sure. And then the last one, marching band or concert band?
Concert band.
Nice. Dude, this has been great. I've really enjoyed this conversation with you. I'm sure there are tons of people listening to it, or maybe there's at least one person listening to it, and they are thinking to themselves, Victor's so smart. I gotta tell him how smart he is and how good looking he is. How would they get a hold of you if they wanted to tell you how they felt about the episode or ask any other questions? If maybe they want to reach out and they've got other questions, how would they get a hold of you?
They can shoot me an email. It's Victor, Victor .Djonorh, DJONORH at edmondschools.net. I don't really like to talk to people on my socials. I've got a Facebook. I've got an Instagram. My Instagram is music for the number 4 freedom. So music FOUR freedom. So you can find me on there also. But
it sounds like you should email. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
All right, man. I really appreciate you sharing all this wisdom. It's been really amazing. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for doing this.
I appreciate you, man. It's been fun.
I want to thank Brandon Yoakum for his work on mastering this episode of the podcast. You can check out Brandon at epiphanyrecordingstudio.com. And most of all, I would like to thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one.